Okay, perfect. That is great. So without further ado then, I am going to introduce our first employer here today. It is Jane. Jane works for a company, an organisation, an SME called PlotBox. So I'm just going to bring up Jane's slides. If you just kindly bear with me 1 wee second, please. Jane, can you see those okay?
Yes, Donna, all good. I can see them.
Oh, that's brilliant. No problem at all. Well, listen, sit back with your cup of tea, coffee, or your Kit Kat and enjoy the next sort of 20, 25 minutes with Jane. Now, as Jane rightly mentioned to me earlier, before the session started, don't be afraid. In the chat function, if you have a question that you're not too sure about, or you would like that advice from an employer, this is your opportunity. It's great. I listened to three wonderful employers yesterday, and I mean, it is so reassuring to get that feedback from the employer. So feel free to ask questions as we go through in the chat, and I'll man that as we go. Thanks very much, Jane. Over to
Brilliant.
yourself.
Thank you. Cheers, Donna. Can everybody hear me okay? Donna, maybe you could just sort of keep a wee eye on the chat. If there's any issues with the sound dropping out, you could let me know. So Donna, firstly, thank you for the introduction. Thank you very much to you and your colleagues for inviting me here today. And it's lovely to see those who have attended come and join us. So my name's Jane Askin. As Donna said, I work for a company called PlotBox. So if you don't know of PlotBox, or if you've never heard of us, we're a local tech firm. We're based in Ballymena. We have a global focus, however, and we've been operating for about 10 years. We were founded by a local couple, Sean and Leona McAllister. At the minute, we have almost 80 staff across the world, and that's from Ballymena to Boston to the west coast of the USA and lots of states in between. And we also have some staff in India and in the APAC region in Adelaide in Australia. So what are we? We're a cloud-based product. We're a tech firm. And our product brings together mapping and inventory solutions along with operational software for cemeteries and crematoria. So we are a death tech company. We work in the death care industry, which is a really fascinating industry to be part of. And it always sparks a really interesting conversation with people when they say, oh goodness, I didn't really put, death and technology together. But actually, there is a very big market, and actually that industry itself is very much on a journey of digital transformation. And so we're there to help our customers essentially serve families, bereaved families. And if our technology can do that, it means we have achieved our mission, which is to take away some of the pain of death for families and those who serve them. So that's really the mission that is at the very heart of everything we do. My role then, Head of Culture and Talent, is to focus on three things: to attract, to retain, and to develop our staff. Now, it's not always as simple as that, but I think those three words really describe the purpose of my role. You might have heard similar roles like Head of HR, Head of Talent, Head of People, and really I'm responsible for setting out and along with the senior team and our managers in the business for executing the people strategy through those three strands: attraction, retention, and development. So in this session, as Donna has said, I'm going to share some of my insights into what employers really are looking for, hopefully give you some practical advice and takeaways, hints and tips around navigating the recruitment process, and help you maximize your chances of success. So will we start with the good news or the bad news? We'll go with the bad news first. So the bad news is I'm probably not going to be sharing anything terribly groundbreaking or things that you maybe haven't heard before. But the good news is that I'm not going to be sharing anything that's very complex either. It's not complicated. It's very accessible, and actually everybody can take away something from this session to sort of help them with that journey and navigating those recruitment processes. And as Donna said, I want to reinforce really really what you've been told by your tutors, by your employability, careers advisors, dare I say it, your parents maybe. I'm in that age bracket now, and really just kind of reinforcing some of those fundamentals around how you can maximize your chances of success. So what are we going to cover today? Aiming to talk for about 20 minutes or so. I'll ask a few questions as we go, but we'll talk a little bit about challenges and fears and barriers that you as students and graduates see to the recruitment processes. I'll talk you through what the recruitment stages look like for PlotBox. It might be different for First Derivatives, it might be different for Allstate, for various different companies, but what you'll find is probably the principles are the same. We'll talk then about, you know, how to get shortlisted, how to get interviewed, what to do at the interview, and what to do during the interview. So again, quite practical advice, and as I say, always open to questions. So Donna's going to man that. It's an informal session. I do have slides because I am a bit of a talker, so the slides will keep me on track as much as anything else, but feel free to ask those questions, and Donna will man that for you as we go through the slides. So again, just to sort of, you know, give you some context, some of these roles would be the typical roles that we would recruit for at PlotBox. As I say, we're a tech company, and we do data migration, so we have those kind of roles that you would see sitting within our operations function, within our technology function. Developer roles, data migration engineer, QA. We also then have our mapping division, which would cover, typically would cover maybe students from the geography or geosciences type degree path, so GIS operative and technician. We have, you know, absolutely, the last few weeks we've had a trip of mappers over traveling the States and working on lots of different cemeteries, so they've got a great story to tell about their time with PlotBox. And then we also have sales and business development roles. At the moment we're recruiting for a West Coast, so a California based role, which is essentially a year doing business development and bridging that gap between marketing and sales. So lots going on, lots of recruitment happening, and over the past 2.5 years we've over doubled our headcount. So we've gone from about 38 to nearly 80 staff in that time. So we've done lots of recruitment. So hopefully I'll be able to share some of those practical insights, and hopefully some of those roles have maybe piqued your interest.
Hello, Jane. Sorry, Jane.
Yeah.
Just you've got your first question. Sorry for interrupting. It's from Hazel. Jane, I read in the university intro today that you did a degree in law. Would you say that you have used it in your career with PlotBox? I am graduating in law and very interested in how it may be otherwise applied, especially in the creative industries. I'm considering arts management, and I'm anxious about how to interview-wise, hence me being here.
Okay, hi Hazel, thanks for your question. So yes, I am a law graduate. I had wanted to do law for as far as I could remember, and I went to university thinking, yes, I got my A-level results, I got in, and long story short, I had an accident in my first year, which meant I wasn't able to do my first year exams. Anyway, I had to do resits, but I'd kind of decided early on I wasn't really sure if a career in law was for me, but because of those delays, I kind of just went ahead with it. I ended up spending a year in the States. I took a year out and did it. It's called the Study USA program. It used to be called the Business Education Initiative, and it was there that I was introduced to kind of HR and business related topics. But at that stage, I was far enough through the degree that I thought, well, I'll just stick with it. So it's kind of that's just a little bit about how I ended up. But I came back, finished my degree, and to be honest, I think having a law degree is a very, very good degree to have. I think employers probably look at a law degree and say, goodness, okay, that girl or that guy or whoever, that, you know, they've worked hard, they've got grades to get into a law course. It's a tough enough topic. And not everybody then uses their law degree to go in and practice law. So I found in a HR role it was really quite useful. Now, I'm not an employment lawyer by any stretch, and it's been a good few years. I know I look very young, but it's been a good few years since I actually graduated. But I would say it has really stood me in good stead. It's given me really good discipline. It's given me an understanding of the legal framework within which sort of employers operate as well. And I think, Donna, did you say, Hazel, you're thinking about going into more sort of arts management sort of area? Yeah. So I would say it will stand you in good stead, to be honest. I'm not sure what stage you're at with your degree, but you know, I think if you're able to get through it, if you're able to get a good degree at the end of it, I reckon, Hazel, you would, you know, I think it's a great degree to have, basically. I hope that answers your question. The world is your oyster, I think would be how I would summarize that. Is that okay, Donna? Okay, well, listen, hopefully that's worked okay for you. In the interest of time, I'm gonna zip on. I'd like everybody in the call just to have a think about your biggest fear or your biggest challenge in relation to the recruitment process. So you can either share it on the chat or just have a think or jot it down, or just take a minute or two to kind of think about that. And maybe Donna, if you have any insights coming in from the chat pane.
Don't know if Donna just left there or I think she's come back now, Jane.
Oh. Are you with it?
Sorry.
Are you there?
Yes. Sorry. Just everything went blank there with me. I don't know. I wonder, is everybody still with us? Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Brilliant. That's great. Thank you very much, Jane.
I've posed that question, Donna. What's your biggest fear or challenge in relation to the recruitment process? So I don't know if you've gathered any responses.
Okay. What do we see here? So yes, I have indeed. I've got changing lanes, subjects. The biggest fear is clearing the online assessments, which is a great prize. Yes, definitely.
Probably not something I can speak to. We don't do online assessments, and it is something that we may introduce in the future. But I don't want to talk about something that I don't really know a huge amount about. So I can't really necessarily answer that one. If there's anything else anyone wants to share, I mean, some of the things I guess that I've heard from students whenever I've done stuff like this before really has been, I guess, nerves, getting to an interview and not knowing what to say, maybe forgetting what you're going to say, maybe babbling on, not knowing when to finish a question, maybe the fear of not getting the job, maybe it's the fear of actually getting the job in some instances. Feeling just that, what if I don't get this job? It's going to knock my confidence. Oh goodness, a dreaded presentation. I hate public speaking. What am I going to do? Maybe it's time. Maybe you've got lots of deadlines for your course. And so I suppose we all have those fears, even 20 years on, if you go for another job, those kind of things will probably bubble up to the surface. And like, the reality is, I just want to reassure you, interviewers who are sitting on the other side of the table or on the other side of the screen, they're just people. They're like you and me. They're like your tutors, like your parents, like your siblings, like your aunties and uncles. And they want you to get the job. So I think gone are the days where you would have been put under unnecessary stress at interviews. I think everyone wants to create an environment where they want to give you the best chance of getting that job and of actually doing well in the interview. And so, always bear that in mind whenever you're getting through, and don't let your confidence be knocked if you don't get a job. Often that's where you learn an awful lot. And actually, so use that as a learning experience, I suppose would be what I would say. So I'm going to just kind of go through the recruitment stages that we use at PlotBox. Now, as I say, this may be different for different employers, but it'll give you a little bit of an insight into kind of the journey of, identifying a job to when we might offer someone a role. And again, you may not, again, the reason I show this is because you may not have been involved in a kind of professional or rigorous kind of recruitment process before. Maybe your part-time jobs have been a job down the local shop or in the chippy or babysitting the neighbours' kids, and you won't have had such a structured kind of recruitment process. Now, that's not to say those jobs are not valuable. They are absolutely valuable, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on in the presentation. But in terms of the recruitment stage, I just want to give you kind of a little bit of an insight into sort of what that recruitment stage looks like. So in terms of kind of, we identify, if we start in the top left-hand corner, we'll identify a staffing need. Now, that can come from various different places. That can be because maybe we need new skills in the team. We've maybe had someone leave the business and we need to replace that person. Maybe we've lots of business coming in through the pipeline and we need certain staff with certain skills for. So there's lots of different ways we can arrive at that point. And really what we do is we use that as an opportunity to define, well, what is the gap? What do we need to fill? And actually we can use it as an opportunity to structure the team and kind of go, well, we might need to put a bit more of a focus on a particular area. We then use that then to kind of go, right, well, we know what the gap is. Actually, what is the ideal person like that might fill that? What are the skills, the attributes, the behaviours, the qualities that that person may need to have? What's the experience level? And we use that to really create the job ad. We'll advertise that job. We may use agencies. We may go out directly. If it's a particularly hard to fill role, we might liaise with agencies. We'll put it out to the university. We'll get it on Handshake if it's a graduate or student role. And then the process then for applicants begins. So the red squares really are where there's an interface with the candidate. So the rest of these are kind of internal parts and points, but where the red squares start to come in, you'll see where we start to interface with the candidates. So the process of applications begin. Now, we have a recruiter who will typically do a screening call. So when you've decided that you want to apply for the role, you put your CV and cover letter in, and our recruiter will go through and look and see initially whether you initially fit the bill. We may then reach out for a further call, a screening call, which is really just an informal chat to understand really your kind of motivations for the role, where you see yourself fitting in, and how your skills would match the needs of the business. And at that stage then we'll determine whether we want to take you through to the next stage. Now, this shows stage 1 and stage 2. I think for most of our roles these days, we try to keep it to just a stage 1 interview. Maybe for more senior roles or very niche roles, we'll have 2 stages if lots of different people have to be involved. But we do try to kind of streamline the process as much as possible to really make it easy for candidates and to make it as simple as possible for us to access the widest pool of talent, really. And then once the interview process concludes, then we make an internal approval to offer, and then we'll make the verbal offer and issue the offer and contract. And as I say, that's just a little whistle-stop tour of what a typical kind of recruitment stage is, all the different stages of recruitment will look like at PlotBox. And then keen to know as well, just are you guys familiar, and again, maybe, you know, Donna, you've maybe been drumming this into them, the difference between a job description and a person spec? Does anyone want to maybe offer an answer? Or
I think this is a fantastic call here, Jane, to explain this to the students, because sometimes it can be very misconstrued and confusing, and there's probably, as answering your question, know that they don't know the difference between the the person spec and the job description.
Okay. Anyone else? Does anyone want to maybe, you know, proffer an answer and suggest what the difference might be? We'll give it a minute or two. I don't want to rush on if people are.
Please add into the chat, guys. You're very welcome. There's a wee question there, Jane, while we're waiting. What skills do you look for at interview? What, as a company, what is it that PlotBox is looking for?
Okay, so that's an interesting one, because it'll vary according to each role. Okay, so that's the first thing I would say, and you'll understand what skills we're looking for by what's in the job description and the person spec. They'll probably, well, the person spec more. But I did a little bit of a survey with our hiring managers actually just in advance of this presentation, and also as part of a bigger piece of work that I'm doing internally. And actually there was probably about 4 or 5 key skills that came through as things that we really look for whenever we are really looking for any role. One of them was, you know, communication skills, being able to articulate yourself and concepts and things that you're working on. The next was ability to kind of learn and pick up things, you know, yourself. So being able to grasp those concepts and being able to kind of pick them up quickly. What were the other ones? There was communication, there was that. Some of them focused on kind of the more technical things. So for example, in data migration, SQL skills were really, really important. But I'm thinking more kind of broader and wider. You know, an appetite to learn was another thing that really came through. So I'm scared if I move away from this, I'm gonna lose my screen, but I should probably, I've got this in front of me really, as to what we're looking for. No, I thought I had it on my desktop, but I don't, and I can't really remember just off the top of my head. But it's that ability to learn new concepts, and communication would be 2 really, really important things that I think we're looking for.
That's
So
brilliant. And just in terms of your question that you've posed here, Beatrice has come in with in the chat. I think job description focuses on role and your responsibility if selected, whereas personal spec may focus on skills and personality traits that the company is looking for, not just in relation to the role, but also in relation with the company itself, their values and the culture.
absolutely spot on. 10 points. That's absolutely spot on, and couldn't have described that better myself. So you're absolutely right. So the job description is around the role itself. What will you be doing if you get this job? What are you responsible for? What activities will you be doing? What are your responsibilities and what are your objectives for the role? So it's very much focused on the job itself. The person spec then is the other side of that. So the person spec is really a profile of the ideal candidate. Who is this employee? What are they going to look like? What are their skills? What are their attributes? What are their behaviours? What are the competencies that we need them to display? So it's just worth bearing that in mind, because there's as a candidate coming into a role, you want to be kind of going, oh, is this a job that I would enjoy doing? Is this a job that I think I would be good at? Is this the job that I've got experience for? And then actually, oh, is this the kind of person they're looking for? Do I have those skills? Do I have what they need in terms of maybe experience, in terms of behaviours that I've been able to demonstrate in the past? So it's really two sides of the one coin. One is the job, which focuses on the job itself and the clues in the name. The other is the person spec and who is the ideal person that they're looking for. So it's worth having that distinction in mind as well, and seeking out information on both, because they can both really help you as you prepare for the interview, if you get the interview. So again, I wanted to focus really on kind of three. We don't have a huge amount of time together, so I wanted to kind of focus on three things: is getting shortlisted, how you can, some top tips for getting shortlisted, some top tips for preparing for the interview, and then some top tips for during the interview. So starting in with kind of getting shortlisted, and how do I kind of maximize my chances of getting shortlisted and actually getting a job or getting in front of the right people. And really my first tip would be to follow us. So follow us on our socials. We are growing at a rapid pace, and we're using lots of different ways that we can communicate our jobs. So things like LinkedIn, if you have a profile on LinkedIn, you should follow us, because you can hear what's happening, and we post very, very regularly on LinkedIn. Same with Facebook as well. We post on there. We don't have an Instagram account just yet. We're talking about doing that, because we feel that kind of will hit a younger generation. I think Facebook's maybe a little old. Maybe my generation and a wee bit older use Facebook, or your mum or your granny uses Facebook, and it's maybe not so cool anymore. We're talking about TikTok and how we can use TikTok. And again, we're balancing with our kind of the sector within which we work. So the death care sector, there's not too many of our customers really would be using TikTok. However, when we're looking at our demographic for the people that we wish to attract, that's a really good, it's a good place to be. So follow us on our social channels, get on our website, look at our careers and our job postings and job pages, and sign up for any newsletters or subscriptions, and you'll hear a lot more about what we're doing on those channels. When you decide that this role is the role for you, for example, then I would say cover letters are actually pretty important in our process. It may not be the same for all the other processes, but in my experience, and I spoke to our recruiter, and she really believes in the power of a good cover letter. So it doesn't have to be War and Peace, it doesn't have to be terribly detailed, but just a few bullet points as to, I've read the job ad, I think I'm a good fit because, and summarize a few bullets as to why you think you're good for the role. It seems obvious, but make sure you put in like your email address correctly. Maybe I think views have changed a little bit, but back in my day we were always advised don't have a silly email address. So partybabes29@hotmail.com. maybe have something a little bit more professional, but make sure you have you've kind of got that all right and all correct. And then your CV, most companies these days will get you to submit a CV. So I think gone are the days where you had to fill in a lengthy application form. But your CV, I would say tailor your CV and make sure it's up to date, make sure it shows your most recent kind of projects or where you're at in your education. But also if you've had any jobs, update them with the jobs, and make it relevant, make it obvious to us as an employer why it is that you should be considered for this role. So don't just submit the same CV for all roles. And actually, I would say make sure you read the job description and the person spec as well, back to my previous point. Not just to maximize your chances of success, but to really understand, is this the role that you want? You know, is this the role that you'd be happy in? Because actually, that's a really important element as well of making sure that, you know, that you want to be in a job that you want to be in. So do read all the information that's available to you. And just a very practical tip, CVs, Word isn't the best format to submit a CV. I would suggest that you would PDF it. The reason I say that is because some applicant tracking systems, ATSs, they make your formatting in Word go up the left, and it's horrible to read. So a PDF would be my top tip on your CV. PDF it and submit it that way. Check and check again. I'm a bit of a stickler for grammar and spelling, and so use whatever tools that you need to be able to make sure that you're putting that in and you're submitting the best version, that it's been, you know, spell checked, you've checked your grammar, you've maybe got someone like Donna and her colleagues to have a little look over it for you, and you've used whatever kind of digital tools are out there. If you know maybe that's maybe not a strong point of yours, make sure that that's that you've brushed up on that. And then I guess follow up to, you know, we have a really busy recruitment function, and we do try to focus on the candidate experience and make sure it's as swift as possible. But sometimes we have a lot of open roles, we have a lot of candidates, and so do follow up. If you haven't heard anything within sort of 3 or 4 days, just a polite email to say, just checking on the status of my application, because it keeps us on our toes as well. And even though we do try to make sure that we're as swift as possible, I would say that's a good tip would be just to make sure that you keep an eye on your application. So again, you know, you've applied for the job, and you've been lucky enough to be shortlisted, you've been sent your email, and you've been told that you're coming in for interview. So my kind of top tips, and again, I could probably put the question out to the floor. You can maybe throw in some of what you believe to be the things that you need to do, but I'll crack on with the slides, and maybe after this, Donna, we can kind of regroup and see what people have said. My top tips for before the interview is research the company. I cannot stress this enough. I know you might be applying for different jobs across different companies, but it's really, really important that you research the company. When I went out to our hiring managers and asked them for what would they, you know, I got them to kind of do my work for me today. I said, what are your top tips and what should I be sharing with the guys? And they said, you know, do not come to the interview without having researched what the company does, what our product is, what our market is, what's important to us, what's newsworthy, why have we been in the news recently? Things like that will, you know, you really need to scope out the website and see what you can find either on our social channels, what we're pushing out there, what's important to us as a company. And I think that shows that it shows that you've prepared, it shows that you understand, you know, what we do as a company, and that you've actually gone to the bother of researching us. Read description and person spec. Again, I can't stress that enough. And again, I know you might be applying for multiple jobs, but do take time to focus on the role that you are applying for. Read the job description. What it is I'm going to be doing? Would I like doing that? Is that going to fulfill me? What kind of skills do I need to show? What do I need to showcase at interview or before interview that's on the person spec that's really going to convince this employer that I'm a good match for their job? Always prepare examples, and the STAR technique is something that we'll talk about in more detail in future in a couple of slides ahead here, and you might have heard of this already. It's a fairly standard technique for answering interview questions, and we'll talk about that in more detail a few slides on. But examples are hugely important, and actually being really familiar with your CV and the application for that particular job is quite important too. So make sure that for everything that you've kind of put in your CV, for all the skills that you claim to have, make sure you can have some examples to back that up, because I'm 100% sure most companies will ask you to give examples as you go through the recruitment process. You know, just on a personal level, just in terms of that preparation, you know, the job description and the person spec are going to be your key to understanding what kind of questions you might get asked. And so we all do it. We all try to preempt some of those questions that we're going to get asked at interview, and those examples that we need to prepare for. So just a bit of an amalgamation on 2 and 3. Personally, when you're preparing for your interview, focus firstly on the areas that you believe you're not so strong in. So I think there's a tendency with everyone to kind of focus on, you know, preparation around areas that we're good at or that we know the answer to, because it makes us feel good, right? So we've smashed that answer, brilliant. And what we tend to do is we run out of time and we think, oh goodness, I'm not so strong in a particular area and I don't have enough time to prep for it. they're the questions that might scupper you. So it might feel a little bit counterintuitive, but start with the areas that you feel that you're perceived to be weakest on. So maybe you're going for a job as a developer, and you're pretty sound technically. You can smash it. You've got the technical answers nailed. Maybe the behavioural stuff you're not so good with, and they're the questions that you dread. So human nature is to leave those to the end and procrastinate on preparation for those. But flip that round and start with those areas that you might feel a little bit weaker on. And my second tip there as well, and I do this as well, and if you can do it, it's hugely eye-opening. When you are preparing for your interviews or preparing some sort of answers for your questions, talk them out loud, speak them out loud. If you can do it, look in a mirror. If you're brave enough, do an audio recording and listen back. And actually, even better, get your camera. Everyone's got a camera on their iPhone. Stick it in front of you and actually record yourself giving some answers. Cringy as it is, you'll learn a lot. And actually, even answers that you might prepare in your head or that you might write down, it's very different to have them written down or swirling around in your head to actually hear yourself vocalizing them. So my advice would be get in front of a mirror or video yourself, and actually you'll learn a lot. You'll learn a lot about little verbal tics. I say a lot, and I probably am doing it now. But if you can listen and nail it, you can kind of go, oh goodness, I said that a lot then, or maybe I answered that pretty well, and I'll note down a few changes. So that would be a couple of top tips there for 2 and 3. Have at least one question prepared. So again, it just saves that awkwardness whenever the interviewers might say, oh, do you have any questions for us? It's always nice to think that you might have a question or two prepared. And then finally, again, it may seem obvious, but know where you're going, know the location. If you're physically going to an interview, and I know these days many will take place over Zoom and Teams, for example, but do a recce beforehand. Know that you can park a particular car park that's going to get you there in time. You don't want to be running 3 miles in high heels and coming into the interview flustered. And the equivalent of that is get on early and check that your Zoom link is working, that you've actually got the Zoom link. Sometimes employers forget to send that, or they're waiting for someone else to send it. Make sure that you've got that and make sure that it works. And if you can test like your microphone and your speakers, that all will help. I would say, interviewers are fairly sympathetic. If there's technical issues, no one's gonna shout at you, or we're not going to cancel the interview. But just on a personal level, it just sets you off on a more difficult interview if you come in flustered and you're faffing about with your mic and your speakers. So it might seem obvious, but do test all those things before you go to the interview. So Donna, is this a good time to kind of regroup on some of the questions? Are you getting any questions?
There was one question there, Jane, before we move on. It was in relation to social media. 1 wee second here. What do we see? It was from Hannah. In terms of, what do we say? What is your thoughts on reaching out to an employer via social media?
It's fine to do it. What I would say is most social media tends to be kind of the administrator for the social media tends to be someone maybe from the marketing team or the communications team, not necessarily the recruitment team. Now, that could be bigger for bigger organizations who have a particular kind of Facebook page that's maybe focused on, employer-employee stuff. But I know in our company, for example, it's kind of run by our kind of business development and marketing teams. So you're not necessarily going to get to the right person or to the recruiter.
Yeah.
And what you may find is the recruiter themselves might actually share a link on social media and say, reach out to me for further conversation on LinkedIn or Facebook. But that'll be specific, that'll be kind of down to each company. So yeah, you can absolutely do it. But again, my advice would be maybe an email to their careers page, or putting in a speculative CV, or just just applying for the role itself would probably be a better way. But there's nothing that would stop you. And actually, we advertise a lot on social media, so if you do that, it will probably get to the right people. It just might take a little bit of time.
Yeah, that's a very valid point there. Exactly. Thank you very much, Jane. Jane, is there anything that you would like to quickly add before we finish up here? We have Leah waiting in the wings, but I think really and truly the audience here, the online audience here today will speak for itself, that this has been really such down-to-earth advice and tips and hints for either students going out into the world of work over the next couple of months, or indeed maybe students searching for placements. You know, the information here, the likes of reminding us the difference between a job spec and a job personal specification and a job role. Absolutely fantastic. Anything else you want to mention before we wrap up, Jane?
Well, yeah, I've gone over time, so just I promised I'd go through some of these things. Just a little bit about competency-based interview, and so past
Sure.
performance and future. So make sure those examples demonstrate what you've done in the past. We talked about the STAR technique, Donna. I think you maybe shared something. So again,
Yep.
that's situation, task, action, and result, and really it's a good framework to keep yourself on track whenever you're answering interview questions. I was going to go through a sort of an example of potential answer that you might give, and maybe talk about sort of where you might improve that answer, but we don't really have time to do that, unfortunately. So I'll just finish off with the top tips for during the interview. Listen to the question. Don't be afraid to ask for clarity if you don't understand the question. Maintain eye contact with everybody in the room if you can. I know some people find that difficult, but do try to do that, and you can do that if you video yourself as well. Offer examples. Can't stress that enough. Be confident. Don't be knocked if you don't get this role. Maybe it just wasn't the right role for you. Be honest and transparent. If you're bluffing your way through an answer, the interviewers will probably know, and it's maybe just not the right job for you. So don't be afraid to say you don't understand the question, or that you don't. That you maybe don't know the answer. And I guess then I was just going to ask people to sort of reflect and think about if there's any kind of top tips that they were going to take away from this session. I know there's a lot in it, and we've crammed a lot in at the end there.
Brilliant.
Have a wee think.
Please do. And while I'm changing slides for Leah and our next employer, please put in support Jane here and put into the chat function, because Jane will be able to pick this up. Put into the chat function, what is your key takeaway from Jane's session today? Even if it's only one word or one phrase, or you know, if we were to do this again, what would you like to see us include in the session, for example? We're open to learning from you guys as well. Would you agree on that, Jane?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
That's brilliant. So feel free to add in while we share the next slides, because I mean, at the end of the day, this is your opportunity to speak to the employer. And we have Leah. Leah, can you see your slides there okay?
Yes, I can. Yes, that's grand.
Oh, that is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Leah, I'm sorry I ran over and kept you waiting. Apologies.
Do not worry. Do not worry. I actually really enjoyed that session as well, Jane. That was really, really insightful, and I'm sure the students have really gained a lot from that. So I'm hoping I do the same for everyone.
Oh,
there may be a little
well,
bit of crossover here on some of the points, but
and that's
yeah,
totally fine. Absolutely, Leah. That is totally fine. And in many ways, if there is crossover, it means that we're all doing something right. And
absolutely.
that is, you know, that's the truth. So without further ado, I would like to present Leah from First Derivatives.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining today. So yes, I'm Leah from First Derivative. So I work on the early careers team as a graduate recruitment executive. So I focus a lot on our graduate program, our placement program, and also our higher level apprenticeship as well. So far this year, we've hired 170 people for the graduate program alone. That's not including placements or anything. And last year we hired 435 people, I believe. So we're really growing, and yeah, we're very busy in the recruitment department at the moment. But just to give you a bit of backstory about us and our story, I guess, before I go into kind of the tips and tricks, we have recently had a bit of a rebrand. We used to be known as First Derivatives, and now we're known as FD Technologies as a whole. And we've now got 3 different business divisions. So we've got First Derivative, we've got KX, and we've got MRP. So First Derivatives was founded in 1996 by Brian Conlon, who unfortunately has passed away, but his legacy still very much remains. He actually started the company with a £5,000 loan from Newry Credit Union, and now we've developed and we've gone so far. We're now a global company. We now have the largest fully dedicated capital markets consulting team in the world, and we've 15 offices globally. So then we acquired MRP in 2008 and KX in 2018, and our headquarters is still based in Newry. So we're very much focused on keeping it like that, and helping to recruit local talent as well. So as I said there, yes, we have the largest fully dedicated capital markets consulting team. We have 2,500 engineers, 15 offices worldwide. So we have offices in the APAC region, in Singapore, Hong Kong. We have offices in Sydney, in New York, across Europe. We've just recently opened one up in Madrid, which is actually where I did my placement year. So I'm certainly hoping to get to go to Madrid at some stage. And we also work with 20 of the world's top 20 banks right now. So I'm sure you recognize some of those of our clients there, those big names. And then we also have KX then as well. So KX is our sister company, so it's capable of capturing data from any location, any format. And the streaming analytics platform drives the most demanding business decisions with real-time continuous intelligence. And we were recently working with Formula One there, which was really, really exciting for the company as well. So I always like to show people a bit about what we do and like who we are via a video. Now, I don't know if this is going to work for everyone. Sometimes I have issues with it, and I don't actually think it is going to work. So I'm gonna leave that out, and maybe as we are a bit tight for time, that's not too bad a thing right now. So I was gonna talk a bit about our graduate program. And kind of what we offer. I'm going to summarize it really, really quickly. But basically, the crux of what I do with First Derivative is hire people for our graduate program, which is a 2-year scheme which enables fast track progression into the capital markets industry. So it's a structured timetable program with 4 to 6 weeks of initial training, with lectures and workshops focused around the particular stream that you've chose, and then you go on to work for one of those big clients that we work for, and get actual real life experience. So you'll either be working on site with the client, or you could be working on a project with First Derivative in one of our 15 global offices. And we also offer accreditations in Premia and Prince in different technical areas such as Java, C#, AWS, cloud training. So we have roles in kind of the finance side of things, but also the more technical side of things like data engineers, software engineers, and obviously our interview process it's quite similar for both, but for each different stream there will be more of an emphasis on that area. So our financial consultants, which is sorry, I just heard an echo there. I thought someone was asking a question. So for our financial consultants, which is our biggest stream, a huge part of this is having really strong communication skills, because our financial consultants deal with clients, and we would really heavily focus on competency-based questions around that, whereas with our more technical roles we would definitely focus on more kind of problem-solving style questions focused around that area. So that's a quick summary of our capital markets training program, which is where we're particularly busy at the moment. So you can see some of the different roles, as I mentioned there, that we're hiring for. But so someone just asked a question there about general business roles. So we've actually just recently opened our our financial engineering stream to all divisions. So we actually are looking for business backgrounds, because a lot of the projects are kind of general business operations focused, and actual general business roles. If you're talking about, you're looking for maybe a career that's nothing to do with finance, we're actually piloting a new stream this month, where it is people who maybe want to go from a business degree into maybe HR, maybe onboarding, contracts, recruitment. And the way it's going to work is it will be on a rotational basis. So you will have a few months in each department to kind of gain experience there and see what you like and what you want to do. And then following on from that, it will be a 2-year program, the same as this. And then following on from that, you'll kind of have more ownership over your career and decide which area you like the most and where you kind of want to grow and progress in. So as for what we look for as a whole, we're looking for someone that does have an inquisitive mindset, an aptitude for problem solving, and a passion for learning. We obviously provide everyone with fantastic resources, and we want everyone to utilise them. We want people to want to develop themselves and learn as much as possible and gain these accreditations. And as well as that, obviously a confident communicator, as I said, in the more kind of consultancy positions, it's a huge element. And then obviously the ability to pick up technical training as well. So even for our financial streams, we do offer advanced Excel training and training in those more technical areas, kind of because it's very important in the world we're in today. And then as for kind of requirements, we do look for a strong academic background with a 2-1 degree in the STEM, finance, law, or business degree. So as I said, we've now opened it up for the financial engineering position to all backgrounds. And then obviously commitment as well to our program, which rolls into, obviously it's a permanent position from the start, but yeah, then after the 2-year program, you move from a junior consultancy position into an intermediate position. So it's really worthwhile completing the 2 years. So as for our application process then, so this is kind of what it has been like for the past year or so with COVID. Obviously, it's been a bit difficult to kind of do the more face-to-face interviews, but it starts with an online application form, which really is sending in your CV, which we will have a look at. Someone just asked about their A-levels. So we don't really take A-levels into consideration now. It's the degree that we would look at. Beforehand, we did actually have a look at A-levels, but now it's not something that we require. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, so we have an online application form where we look at your CV, and then following on from that, it will be a screening call, which will really last about 10 to 15 minutes. We're really trying to find out in that call what you're looking to apply for. Sometimes people will apply for kind of a financial engineering position, and we'll tell them some more information about the company, and they actually decide, I actually think I could be a better fit for data engineering. So that's very common with ourselves. It's really deciding what you're looking for, kind of what you've studied, and just to get a general idea about yourself, really. And then following on from that, it will be a video or face-to-face interview. Now, we're trying to do more face-to-face interviews, obviously, now that COVID isn't as prevalent, but the way we're doing that now is through group assessment days. So we've started doing virtual group assessment days and also in-person assessment days. So because we recruit on like worldwide, we would sometimes have people from Canada on a virtual call, and obviously that's not possible to have everyone in person. So for more local sessions, we'll have them maybe in Dublin, Belfast, or Newry. And what this really involves is a one-to-one interview with either myself. There's three recruitment executives on my team, and it'll be an interview with myself or one of my colleagues. Then following on from that, we do have a logic test. So I know someone had asked a question about that earlier. I was going to jump in, but I thought I'll answer it now. So yeah, it's a numerical reasoning test, and it's 30 minutes long, and you are able to use a calculator throughout. It's not anything that's super difficult, and we understand as well that not everyone is from a technical background. Not everyone's strongest skills are their numeracy skills. I know mine certainly aren't. So we really do take that into consideration on the day. We don't have, for example, a pass mark. It's really just to gauge where your kind of strongest skills are in. And if they aren't strong, that's not anything to worry about at all. We take the whole day into consideration, and we're really trying to find out where your strongest skills lie. So following on from the numerical reasoning test, we then have a group assessment on the interview day, and really, as well as the numerical skills, we know that presentations aren't everyone's favorite thing to do. For a lot of people, I know when I was in university, it was my biggest fear. Like, really, I would be thinking there's 300 days until my next presentation. That's how long in advance I'd be worrying about it. But we know that people can feel scared about that as well. And again, it's more actually about the interaction beforehand and seeing how you work in a team, seeing maybe who is the team player, who's the coordinator, who is the time manager, who's the leader in the group, rather than the actual presenting itself. But we'll give everyone a task on what to present on. You'll have 15 minutes to prepare and maybe 5 or 10 minutes to present. And as I said before, we look at everything as a whole. And then so that's basically our group day, our interview day, and how it's been going. We are trying to do it a lot more, but obviously we know it's not possible for everyone. So we're doing a lot of the virtual assessments at the moment too. So we're trying to do one of them a week, and it's not always possible for everyone to attend those. So sometimes they'll be done separately as well. So then following on from that, it is a job offer stage, and we'll always try and get back to people within 1 to 2 weeks. But as Jane said, it is always good to if you haven't heard from us in maybe a week or so, to reach out to us. We don't mind that at all. We appreciate it. And we'll always get back to you and kind of let you know where we are. So yeah, does anyone have any questions surrounding that at all? Does that make sense to everyone?
Thanks very much. Leah, there was a couple of questions. I'm just going back through the chat, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a little question here from Prayas. I am interested in data roles as I'm from a data science degree. So
Okay.
what hints or tips would you recommend for Prayas here? Is there anything, do you believe, within first derivative that this individual could apply for example?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we have a data engineering stream, which is specifically focused on data and working on those real life data projects, detecting patterns and trends within data, working with big data. And yeah, it's a really exciting stream where you can go into kind of different areas, following on from that. So obviously, I think you said data science there. You could be a data engineer for maybe one of our KX clients, or working for KX. And the way we do it is it's very much a collaborative and supportive environment here, and you'll be working in a team. Once you have finished your training and you go on to a real life client project, really the crux of the role is actually providing solutions and problems for our clients, and it can involve a range of different things. So yeah, there's data engineering is a huge stream for us. It's very,
Mhm.
very popular. As I mentioned there, KX, it's all about data, and it provides those real-time data analytics at a faster speed than any of our competitors. So it's a really, really exciting and growing field, and there's plenty of opportunities as well following on from the program to progress in that kind of position too.
Brilliant,
So
brilliant.
hopefully that
Priya,
answers.
I hope that has answered your question there. Priya, yes, thanks a million, Leah. That's Priya. Leah, what I want to, I'm really from a career point of view, I'm really, I suppose, taken back by the fact that this 2-year graduate program. Okay, so any of our students on board here today. So, say for example, I'm that student that I have been successful through the application process, and I am, going on to this graduate program with first derivative, and then to even think of down the line after the 2 years that first derivative is going to still provide you with a permanent job. I mean, how exciting is that, guys? I think that is, in this day and age, with a local company with a worldwide spread, having that facility. I mean, I think that is totally amazing. Guys, would you not agree with that? The fact that it's a graduate program, that you're moving around different departments, getting those skill sets, and then, as Leah mentioned there, with a permanent position. What's not to like
Yeah,
about this? It's amazing,
I
Leah.
know,
It really is. It really is. It's a win-win.
I know,
It really is.
I
There's
know
Jane.
I'm biased.
There's Leah. There's Jane from PlotBox. Might apply. Jane, so might I.
Oh, I know.
Very
No,
good.
it's brilliant.
Very
It's
good.
brilliant for
Mm,
graduates because
yeah.
as well, what's great about it too, a lot of people, we appreciate that a lot of people don't know what they want to do when they come out of university, and I know I was the same. So following on from the program, as I said, with the business stream that we're piloting, you have a lot more ownership over the path you want to go down, and as a company we'll provide you with the tools and resources to kind of gain that experience, gain your knowledge. But then following on from graduating from the program, it's really up to you to decide what path you wish to go down. There's so many different areas, and you'll be so experienced following on from the program. Your CV will be fantastic. So the path that you wish to go down is kind of up to you, and we'll do everything we can to kind of facilitate that for you, and kind of give you the tools to go where you want to go, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go on to the next slide here. So a bit more on employability tips and tricks now. What are we like for time, Donna?
Okay, I know we're just a couple of minutes over, but if you don't mind, and the students are happy to stay on board, are you all happy to stay on board for a few minutes? We like to
Okay.
give value for money here, students. Yep, they're all happy. They're all happy, Leah. They really are. Yep,
Okay, that's perfect.
brilliant.
So I know this has been covered a little bit about top tips for a standout CV, but it has been noted that recruiters spend an average of 7 seconds reviewing a CV. So it's really, really important that you get it right. And grammar is a huge thing for me as well. It's something that I notice, it's the first thing that stands out to me. So I would always advise, even going on those Grammarly websites, to check over your CV, give it to a parent, because sometimes you need a set of fresh eyes to look over what you've already written, and sometimes you don't see it yourself. I would always advise doing that, because it really can, it's not to say it'll completely knock your chances of getting through or anything like that, but it isn't a good message for a recruiter, especially when we're looking at it for a very short amount of time. So I think it's really important as well to focus on relevant skills on your CV. I know a lot of people often will talk about their duties and their responsibilities in a role, but I really like to see kind of what skills you've acquired through that role. So whether you want to do that in a separate section or whether you want to kind of incorporate that in along with your duties, I always like having a separate section, to be honest, where I can see different skills that you've acquired over your work experience to date, and maybe some of those transferable skills, and I'll always go into that a bit further in your interview as well. That's always a question that I do ask, kind of over time with your work experience, what transferable skills have you acquired that you could bring to a position with myself? And then as well, so naming it appropriately as well, as Jane mentioned, PDF. I agree. I've said Word or PDF here, but PDF, it definitely is easier for us reading it. And then as well, I think it's always great to start off your CV strong. So I like to see kind of why you applied to a position when I'm reading a CV. So within the first paragraph, I like to kind of have an idea about what you're all about, a kind of a summary of your blend of skills, your characteristics, and your experience, along with your motivation for applying. I think that's really important as well. So I've given a bit of an example here. So someone has said, a highly focused and self-motivated student on track for a first-class honours degree in marketing with excellent interpersonal skills. So there you've mentioned your unique skills, developed through, this is your evidence now to kind of back up what you're saying, developed through several years of experience working in a customer service environment and able to manage time effectively. There's another skill, having maintained a part-time role for 2 years whilst delivering on strict deadlines for university assignments. And here's your motivation then for applying, kind of your goal as for why you've put through the CV. Seeking an internship at First Derivative to enhance my opportunities for commercial exposure and personal growth. So I always like to show that, because that to me would really make your CV stand out. I think that really sums up your skills, your experience, and what you're looking for. So yeah, I would definitely say to put a bit of time into your CV and making it look as great as it can. So another tip I would say as well is one size fits all doesn't show me kind of your motivation for applying and why you've applied to this position. It shows a lack of genuine interest. So I want to kind of say, if you're applying for a data engineering role or a software engineering role, I want to kind of see your technical skills and your work experience and how maybe your transferable skills would be particularly suitable for this position. And it's always good to kind of edit your CV as you go, highlight examples of key skills and values the employer is searching for in an ideal candidate. You can highlight these in bold as well. It's completely up to you. It is your CV, so it's up to you how you would like to do it. But I would always just suggest making everything quite clear and concise, making it focused around the job specification. Have a look at the job specification and have a look at your CV beside it and think, in the first bullet point, do I have experience with this, whether it be a personality trait or whether it be actual experience, and make sure there's something on your CV that I'll be able to go tick, and that's there, okay? And then another thing, obviously, because I receive so many applications on a daily basis, I like to see things that kind of differentiate you from others. So here's a few different areas that you can put into your CV that will make you maybe stand out a bit, and you can see here on the right different skills that you can acquire from the activities here on the left. So for example, through sport, different skills that you can pick up through sport will be teamwork, dedication, leadership, competitiveness, and reliability. Now, I know this will all be sent over to you, so you can have a look at that in more detail and maybe use some of them on your CV. And I know as well the STAR technique was already covered there. So situation, task, action, and result. So when I'm asking, I would ask a lot of competency-based questions on an interview. Well, not a lot, but I definitely, it's a section of the interview. And my best advice for a competency-based interview is just having a look on Google at common competency-based questions. So for me, off the top of my head, the most common topics would definitely be communication skills, teamwork, attention to detail, time management, problem solving. So those are a few different ones that would be quite common in typical interviews. And so someone said, what could be the best example of it? So I'll give you an example of a problem solving question. So I could maybe ask you to give me an example of a time, maybe in a university project, for example, where you have had to use your initiative to create a solution to a problem. So in that instance, I would want you to describe the situation that you have. So tell me about the situation and about the setting, the context, and it says here as well, be clear and concise when choosing your scenario. We don't want it to be a really long-winded answer. We want it to be clear and concise and well thought out beforehand. And it's Jane said a really great point to film yourself answering a few questions. And that way you can kind of perfect it a little bit. Now, obviously, it could be different on the day, but it's good to have a few examples pre-prepared before going into an interview so that you kind of feel confident with any question that comes at you. So next then is tasks. So take a look at your task. What is it that you've had to accomplish? What kind of scenario did you face? And think about what you've actually had to undertake, followed by the action that you have taken. So this is what you did in that situation with that task, and what did you do to kind of maybe resolve the problem, we'll say. So this is a big part of the answer. And yeah, I'm really looking for what you did to kind of gain a positive result and gain a solution to the problem. And then the last part is the result. So what was it that you have done that has actually provided a solution to this problem? So I think another point here that's really important is I personally don't like to hear examples or responses to a question where you've said, we did this as a team and the result was this. I like to personally hear what you have done, what your role has been to provide that solution and fix the issue. So hopefully that makes sense. I just missed a question there, something about confidence.
Leah, just echoing, can you hear me okay, yeah?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Just echoing in terms of your STAR technique, absolutely fantastic, so valuable. It is not about the we in a team worked. You're in an interview to the panel, to the students here today. You're in an interview on your own, basically, if it's a face-to-face or online. So it's what you did. So I was responsible for doing this, and I did this. You're so valuable. A key point made there, Leah. Absolutely, totally. And there was a little in the chat there about something. Oh, yes. What advice would you give to someone who lacks confidence, even though they are an academically strong individual? Sorry for interrupting you there.
No, it's okay. I would definitely say, honestly, confidence comes with time, and I can really relate to, as I said, presentation skills or presenting in general, and kind of even being in a team scenario. It's something that I used to be. I wasn't very confident in university, but it actually took that real work experience and training and knowledge for me to come out of my shell a bit. So I would say don't worry at all. It's something that comes with time, I believe, and when you're comfortable in a group, I think university can be a really different experience. If you're academically strong, that's fantastic. But I think as well in university, you can be under a lot of pressure and you're obviously being marked a lot for different things. Whereas when you're in the working world, it's not really like that. The focus isn't as much on you, if that makes sense. You're more in kind of a team environment, especially with ourselves. And I think it's really important to have people around you, a good team, a good support network, to kind of help you if there are any problems or if that is something that you're struggling with. But honestly, my best advice there would be practice takes perfect almost, and you'll just need to gain that experience in in life to kind of gain that confidence. So hopefully that answers
Lovely.
that for you okay, and I can definitely relate to that one. But I'm just going to quickly finish up here with creating an impression and kind of ways that you can, whether it's through an interview, this is more focused on an interview, but definitely be punctual and organised, be polite, dress to impress. Now, you don't have to wear a suit and tie with ourselves. We like everyone to be polished and dressed well. Be prepared to introduce yourself, maintain open body language and eye contact. I think that's really important. Be engaging as well, show passion through your words and gestures. I definitely like someone that is able to use their voice to show a bit of passion. I don't like when someone doesn't sound excited about a role and almost sounds a bit bored at the interview stage. I really like someone to kind of show passion through your voice and show that you want to be there and are excited for this position. And I as well, I'm not an interviewer where I will be very scary and I don't want this to be a difficult journey for you. I want to see the best of everyone. I'll be exactly like I am on this call with you all today in an interview setting. I want to get the best out of everyone, and I don't believe strict interviews are, I think they're a thing of the past now. I really do. And yeah, lastly, leaving a positive note. You obviously want to leave a lasting impression on us, and yeah, that's important as well. So I think that's everything from me today. I know I just missed another question about me in Madrid. Would you be able to get that for me, Donna?
Leah, I'm
Can you
still
hear
on.
me?
I can see it. I don't know if Donna's there or not. Can you hear me, Leah?
Oh, right. Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry. So
Hi.
it's from Hazel. You mentioned
Yeah.
your year in Madrid, Leah. How did you
Yeah.
get into that, and how did it go? And does First Derivative offer jobs, placements, or training abroad also? Hazel has French.
Ah, okay. So I studied international business and Spanish in Queen's University, and that is how I got my placement year. So it was very much a case of finding it. Well, the careers team helped us find the roles, and it was a case of me applying, but it was absolutely brilliant, best year of my life. If you get the opportunity to do that, Hazel, which I'm sure you will get an opportunity to go to France, through an Erasmus program, then absolutely. But for ourselves, we wouldn't do international placements, unfortunately. We would only do the kind of more local placements. So yeah. Oh yeah, no, it was through my university that I went to Madrid. Yeah, sorry if I didn't make that clear.
Okay. That's lovely. That's great. I hope that has answered your question there, Hazel. Yeah, brilliant. No problem at all. And sorry, I just wanted to ask, if you don't mind, Leah, is there an opportunity for students to go global with First Derivative or your sister company?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment, it is looking more like around the 18 to 24 month mark, to be transparent. A lot of people come in thinking it'll be as soon as they have arrived. But no, it's more around the 18 to 24 month mark. Once you've kind of gained all that real life experience, and that's when you'll
Yes.
have the decision to say, I would like to do this, I would like to do that.
Yes, of course.
Obviously it's dependent on project requirements and what we have at the
Yes.
time.
Sure.
But it's a lot easier to get visas and everything sorted following that 18-month mark. And yeah,
Brilliant.
we've 15 offices, so there's a lot of different places that you can go.
So Hazel, maybe that has helped your little question there a bit more. So basically, it's after you complete the graduate program, there may be an opportunity to go abroad, depending on if there is clients available within First Derivative. Does that make sense? All right. Oh, that's great. Leah, that has been wonderful. I really, really enjoyed both your session and Jane's today, and I'm sure the students probably, no doubt, I would say, totally enjoyed it as much as I have here today, from both yourself and from Jane. It's been totally, totally excellent. Thank you kindly. And sorry, we have ran over yet again today. It's the story of my life. I'm sorry about that, but I really do love giving the students value for money. Thanks, Leah, and I hope I haven't kept you back from lunch or
No,
from
not at
further
all,
meetings.
not at all. Not at all. Thank you so much, everyone, for
So,
coming as well.
Jane,
thanks
thank
from
you
me
very
as well.
Thanks a million, Jane. And is there anything that anybody would like to ask either Jane or Leah before they head off? And I'm going to stop recording now.